Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Research Station Helios, watching her daughter Miranda draw constellations on the reinforced glass. The 8-year-old's small finger traced patterns between stars, creating imaginary creatures in the cosmic canvas. Located on the edge of human space, Helios was humanity's furthest research outpost, dedicated to studying quantum anomalies in this unexplored region. "Look, Mom, this one looks like a space whale." Miranda's excitement echoed through the empty observation deck. The night shift had just begun, and most of the station's 100 personnel were either sleeping or working in the lower levels. Sarah smiled, remembering why she'd brought Miranda here for her school break. After losing her father in a mining accident last year, the girl needed something to rekindle her wonder about space. The station's remote location made it perfect for stargazing, far from the light pollution of colonized worlds. The first warning came without fanfare. A simple blip on the long-range sensors. Dr. James Wong, the station's head of security, contacted Sarah through her neural link. "Dr. Chen, we're picking up some unusual readings. Multiple objects dropping out of FTL at the system's edge." Sarah's hand instinctively went to Miranda's shoulder. The Helios station wasn't a military installation. It had minimal defenses and no weapons. The Galactic Concordat had strict rules about weaponizing research facilities. Could it be the supply ships? "They're not due for another 2 weeks." "Negative," James replied, his voice tense. "These signatures are different, larger, military grade." Before Sarah could respond, the station's emergency lights flashed red. A deep, resonating alarm echoed through the corridors. Miranda grabbed her mother's hand, her eyes wide with fear. Through the observation window, Sarah watched as massive shapes emerged from the darkness. Their designs were unlike anything in human space. Angular, predatory vessels with hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Exarathi Empire had finally revealed itself. For months, intelligence reports had warned about the Exarathi, an expansionist species that viewed all other races as resources to be harvested or eliminated. They had been methodically conquering systems on the galaxy's outer rim, but no one expected them to strike this far into human space. "All personnel, this is not a drill. Unknown hostile vessels approaching. Implement emergency protocol Delta 7 immediately." Station Director Collins's voice echoed through the station's comm system. "All civilians to emergency shelters. Research staff, begin data purge procedures." Sarah knew what Delta 7 meant. They couldn't let the station's research fall into enemy hands. Years of quantum studies, breakthrough discoveries about the nature of space-time itself, all of it would be destroyed. But none of that mattered now. All that mattered was getting Miranda to safety. "Come on, sweetie. We need to go." Sarah pulled Miranda toward the emergency lift, but the girl resisted, still staring at the approaching ships. "Mom, why are they here? We didn't do anything wrong." The question struck Sarah like a physical blow. How do you explain to a child that some beings destroy simply because they can? Before she could answer, the first impacts rocked the station. The Exarathi didn't bother with demands or ultimatums. Their opening salvo targeted Helios' communication array, cutting off any chance of calling for help. The second wave of shots disabled the station's engines, leaving them dead in space. Sarah and Miranda ran through corridors filled with panicked personnel. The emergency shelters were 6 levels down, designed to withstand almost any attack. If they could just reach them. Another blast rocked the station, more violent than the others. The lights flickered, and artificial gravity wavered. Sarah heard the distinctive sound of hull breach warnings from multiple sections. "Mom." Miranda's scream cut through the chaos. A support beam had come loose, blocking their path to the emergency lift. Sarah could see other station personnel taking alternate routes, but the only other way to the shelters would take precious minutes they might not have. "It's okay, baby. We'll find another way." Sarah activated her neural link, connecting to the station's architectural layout. There was a maintenance shaft 3 corridors over that would take them down to the shelter level. They just had to reach it. The station shuddered again, and Sarah heard something she'd hoped never to experience. The sound of boarding craft attaching to the hull. The Exarathi weren't just destroying the station. They were coming aboard. As they ran, Sarah caught glimpses through viewport windows of the devastation being wreaked upon Helios. The research station's outer sections were being methodically destroyed, piece by piece. This wasn't random destruction. The Exarathi were conducting a deliberate dissection of the facility. They were 2 corridors away from the maintenance shaft when they heard them. Heavy, metallic footsteps and the sound of weapons fire. The Exarathi boarding parties had breached the hull. Emergency bulkheads began slamming shut throughout the station, an automated response to multiple hull breaches. "Mom, I'm scared." Miranda's voice trembled, but she kept running, her small hand clutching Sarah's tightly. "Just a little further," Sarah encouraged, though her own heart was racing. The maintenance shaft was just ahead. Once they reached it, they'd have a straight shot to the shelters. They rounded the final corner and found themselves face to face with a Exarathi warrior. The alien was tall, its armor a deep purple-black that seemed to drink in light. Its helmet had no visible features, just a smooth, reflective surface that showed Sarah and Miranda their own terrified expressions. Sarah pulled Miranda behind her, backing away slowly. The Exarathi raised its weapon, not at Sarah, but at the small figure behind her. There was no hesitation, no moment of mercy. The alien had been given its orders, and it would execute them with mechanical precision. The last thing Sarah heard was Miranda's scream, cut brutally short. The death of Miranda Chen would be recorded as just another casualty in the Exarathi Empire's expansion. One small life, ended in a remote research station. But as news of the attack reached Earth, something changed in humanity's collective consciousness. The Exarathi had believed they were attacking a defenseless research station. Instead, they had struck the match that would ignite an inferno. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations, building in secret, waiting. The death of an innocent child would be the catalyst that unveiled humanity's true power to the galaxy. The Exarathi Empire was about to learn why you should never underestimate the human capacity for vengeance. As the news spread, deep within hidden shipyards across human space, thousands of weapons of war stirred to life. The time for hiding was over. The time for retribution had begun. Deep within the Cheyenne Mountain complex on Earth, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen stared at the holographic display of the Helios attack. He hadn't seen his niece Miranda in person for over a year. Now he never would. The room was silent save for the soft hum of quantum processors analyzing the combat data from the destroyed research station. The Exarathi missed something crucial during their attack. Commander Diana Santos said, breaking the silence. She manipulated the hologram, zooming in on a particular section of data. They were so focused on destroying the station's research that they didn't notice the quantum beacon. The quantum beacon, a tiny device that had broadcast the station's final moments through subspace channels that the Exarathi couldn't detect. Every detail of their attack, including Miranda's death, had been recorded and transmitted to Earth. The Empire had wanted to send a message. They'd succeeded, but not in the way they'd intended. Begin implementation of Protocol Prometheus, Marcus ordered, his voice steady despite the grief tearing at his heart. Throughout the chamber, officers began transmitting coded signals to hidden facilities across human space. For 300 years, humanity had maintained a careful facade of technological mediocrity. While officially struggling to establish a handful of colonies, they had secretly built an armada unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every mining operation that appeared to fail had actually succeeded, channeling resources to massive hidden shipyards. Every research station that seemed to produce minimal results had actually made breakthrough after breakthrough in weapons technology. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, giant doors began to open in the planet's crust. From Earth's moon, Sections of the surface that had appeared barren for centuries began to shift and change. Throughout the solar system, installations that had been invisible to even the most advanced alien scanning technology started to power up. The first dreadnought rose from its Martian berth, its hull gleaming with a material that could absorb energy weapons and redirect their power to its own systems. Nearly 5 kilometers long, it was a testament to human engineering and determination. But it wasn't alone. Hundreds, then thousands of similar ships emerged from their hidden docks. Commander Santos watched the feeds with a mixture of awe and satisfaction. The Exorethi believe they attacked a defenseless research station. They have no idea that Helios was also monitoring their fleet movements, gathering intelligence on their tactics and technology. How long until the fleet is fully mobilized? Marcus asked, his eyes fixed on the growing armada. 12 hours for the primary fleet. The secondary and tertiary waves will be ready within 36 hours. She paused, checking another display. Sir, the Titan-class vessels are also reporting ready status. The Titan-class ships were humanity's masterpiece, vessels that dwarfed even the Dreadnoughts. Each one carried enough firepower to level a continent, protected by shields that could withstand the energy output of a small star. They had been built with one purpose: to ensure that humanity would never be at the mercy of any alien empire. Throughout human space, civilians watched in amazement as their military's true power was finally revealed. Mining outposts transformed into fortress worlds. Seemingly primitive colonies unveiled defense systems that could repel entire fleets. The mask of weakness that humanity had worn for centuries was being cast aside. In the Exorethi Empire's capital, the first reports of unusual activity in human space were beginning to arrive. Their analysts noted increased energy signatures from several human systems, but their leadership dismissed the concerns. They had seen humanity's technology level, tested their defenses. What threat could these primitives pose? Admiral Chen walked through the Lunar Command Center, now fully activated and humming with power. Officers and crew members snapped to attention as he passed, each of them knowing what was at stake. On the massive view screens, more ships continued to join the fleet. Not just warships, but support vessels, carriers, and ships designed for purposes that Exorethi couldn't begin to imagine. Send word to all fleet commanders, Marcus ordered. Operation Nemesis begins in 24 hours. Primary targets are already designated. The Exorethi believe they can attack our civilians with impunity. Show them the cost of that mistake. The response came back immediately. Acknowledgements from hundreds of fleet commanders, each of them ready to unleash 3 centuries of prepared vengeance. The Exorethi had killed an innocent child, believing they were simply crushing another weak species beneath their heels. Instead, they had awakened a giant. In the depths of space, the gathered human fleet was a sight that would have struck terror into the hearts of any observer. Ships that had been hidden for generations now moved into formation, their crews well-trained and eager to reveal their true capabilities. Weapon systems that the Exorethi had never encountered powered up, shields orders of magnitude more powerful than anything they had faced shimmed into existence. Marcus looked at a small hologram in his private quarters, a family photo from happier times, showing Miranda laughing as she played with her mother. They thought we were weak, he whispered to the image. They thought they could kill our children without consequences. It's time they learned about humanity's capacity for revenge. Throughout the fleet, final preparations were being made. Crews checked and rechecked their systems. Warriors who had trained their entire lives for this moment made peace with what was to come. The Exorethi Empire had ruled through fear and brutality for too long, believing themselves invincible. They were about to learn that they had made the greatest mistake in their species' history. As the final ships moved into position, Marcus sent one last message to the fleet. For 300 years, we have hidden our strength. For 300 years, we have prepared for this day. The Exorethi Empire believes they have seen humanity's might. Show them how wrong they are. Show them what happens when they murder our children. Show them why humanity has survived every challenge it has ever faced. The message was met with a chorus of acknowledgments. Throughout the fleet, engines began to power up. The time for hiding was over. The time for retribution had come. The galaxy was about to witness humanity's fury unleashed, and the Exarathi Empire would learn why you should never mistake patience for weakness. Would you like me to continue with Part 3? The Exarathi border outpost Krelvax was considered impregnable. 3 orbital rings of defense platforms, backed by a fleet of 200 warships, protected the system that served as the Empire's primary staging ground for their expansion into human space. For decades, it had stood as a symbol of Exarathi military might. It fell in less than an hour. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace precisely at the system's edge, their arrival masked by technology that the Exarathi sensors couldn't detect. By the time the first alarm sounded, humanity's ships were already inside the outer defense ring. Admiral Marcus Chen watched from the bridge of the flagship Prometheus as the first wave of human vessels engaged the enemy. The Exarathi ships, caught completely off guard, barely had time to raise their shields before the assault began. Multiple direct hits confirmed, Commander Santos reported, her voice clinical despite the destruction unfolding on their screens. Their shields are failing to compensate for our weaponry. They've never encountered phase-shifted plasma torpedoes before. The Exarathi's response was predictable. They attempted to form up into their standard combat formations, preparing to overwhelm the human fleet with superior numbers. It was a tactic that had served them well against countless other species. But humanity had been studying the Exarathi for centuries. Every move they made had been anticipated, every response calculated. As the Empire's ships moved to engage, they found themselves caught in carefully planned crossfires. Second wave, commence attack, Marcus ordered. From behind the first line of human ships, larger vessels moved forward. These were the Titans, each one carrying enough firepower to render a planet uninhabitable. The Exarathi commanders recognized the threat too late. Their ships attempted to scatter, but found their retreat routes cut off by smaller, faster human vessels that had slipped through their formation. What had started as a battle was quickly becoming a slaughter. On board the Exarathi command station, General Krelvor watched in mounting horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. "Impossible," he snarled, his ceremonial armor clicking as he paced. "These are not the same humans we encountered at the research station. This level of technology, this level of coordination." A junior officer approached, his posture showing clear fear. "General, we're detecting energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Their weapons are bypassing our shields as if they weren't even there." Before Krelvor could respond, the station shook violently. On his command screen, he watched as 3 of his largest battleships were torn apart by weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics themselves. The humans weren't just fighting. They were demonstrating power that the Exarathi had never dreamed possible. Back on the Prometheus, Marcus received confirmation that the enemy's command and control systems had been compromised. Humanity's cyber warfare capabilities, hidden for centuries, were proving just as devastating as their conventional weapons. "Send the message," he ordered. Throughout the system, every Exarathi communication device received the same transmission, a complete recording of the attack on Helios Station, ending with Miranda's death. Along with it came a simple message: "This is what you did. This is why we're here." The effect was immediate. The Exarathi, who had built their empire on inspiring fear in others, began to understand what it meant to be truly afraid. Their remaining ships started to break formation, some attempting to flee, others fighting with the desperate fury of those who know they're doomed. "Sir," Commander Santos called out, "we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. The Exarathi are calling for reinforcements." Marcus nodded, having expected this. "Launch the quantum mines." Throughout the system, devices that had been secretly planted months ago activated. The Exarathi reinforcements emerged from hyperspace directly into killing fields, their ships torn apart by weapons they couldn't detect until it was too late. The battle continued, but its outcome was never in doubt. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment. developing technologies and strategies specifically designed to counter the Exarathi's strengths. Every time the Empire attempted to adapt, they found themselves facing yet another weapon or tactic they'd never encountered before. As the last Exarathi ships fell, Marcus stood at his viewport, watching the debris field that had once been the Empire's proudest military installation. "Prepare for Phase 2, he ordered. "The Exarathi thought they could attack our civilians with impunity. Now they'll learn what it means to face humanity's full strength." Throughout the system, human ships began to move into new formations. This hadn't just been a battle, it was a message. The Exarathi Empire had built its power on the assumption that they were technologically superior to all other species. That assumption had just been shattered. The few surviving Exarathi vessels were allowed to flee, carrying with them recordings of their defeat. The Empire had wanted to send a message with their attack on Helios Station. Now humanity had sent one of their own. This was just the beginning. As the fleet prepared to move deeper into Empire territory, Marcus looked at the casualty reports. The human forces had lost only a handful of ships, while the Exarathi had lost an entire defensive fleet. But this wasn't about military victory, it was about justice. Somewhere in the Empire's hierarchy, the one who had ordered the attack on Helios would be watching these reports, beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. The next phase of humanity's response was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Would you like me to continue with Part 4? In the grand chamber of the Exarathi Imperial Palace, Supreme Overlord Vexthor watched the battle recordings for the 100th time. The destruction of their Krulthax outpost played out before him in merciless detail. His claws dug into the arms of his throne, leaving deep gouges in the ancient metal. "Tell me," he hissed to his assembled war council, "how did we miss this? How did these humans hide such power from us for so long?" High Commander Zarkai stepped forward, his ceremonial armor dulled with stress marks. "My lord, we've analyzed their technology. It's beyond anything we've encountered. Their ships don't just have advanced weapons, they're generations ahead of our own capabilities." The chamber erupted in angry murmurs. The Exarathi had ruled through technological superiority for millennia. The idea that any species could have surpassed them without their knowledge was almost impossible to accept. "Activate the world breakers," Vexthor ordered, silencing the chamber instantly. The world breakers were the Empire's ultimate weapons, massive ships capable of destroying entire planets. They had never been used in full force before, deemed too valuable to risk. "All of them?" Zarkai asked, mandibles clicking in surprise. "All of them. These humans want to show us their true power. Then we will show them ours. Send the order. Any human world, any human ship, is to be destroyed on sight. No mercy. No prisoners. No survivors." Through space, the world breakers awoke. Massive vessels, each one nearly twice the size of a human Titan-class ship, emerged from their hidden docks. They were the pride of the Empire, ships so powerful that their mere existence had kept potential rebellions in check for centuries. But Admiral Chen and humanity's forces had anticipated this response. As the world breakers moved to engage the human fleet, they encountered something unexpected: quantum displacement fields that made targeting nearly impossible. Their mighty weapons, designed to crack planets, couldn't lock onto the human ships. Multiple world breakers detected, Commander Santos reported from her station on the Prometheus. "They're attempting to engage, but our quantum shields are holding. Their targeting systems can't compensate for our phase-shifting technology." Marcus nodded, watching the massive enemy ships struggle to engage his forces. Deploy the Ghost Fleet. From seemingly empty space, hundreds of human ships appeared. These were the Ghost Fleet, vessels equipped with technology that bent light and gravity around them, making them virtually invisible until the moment they struck. They had been following the world breakers since they left their docks, waiting for this moment. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The world breakers, for all their power, found themselves under attack from enemies they couldn't effectively target. Human ships phased in and out of normal space, striking from impossible angles, their weapons bypassing the supposedly impenetrable shields of the Empire's greatest vessels. On his flagship, Vexthor received increasingly desperate reports. The World Breakers, weapons that had inspired terror throughout the galaxy, were being systematically disabled, not destroyed. The humans were deliberately leaving the crews alive, ensuring they would survive to spread word of their defeat. "My lord," a subordinate reported, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures approaching the homeworld. The humans, they've somehow found a way past our defense grid." The Supreme Overlord rose from his command throne, rage and fear warring in his expression. The humans weren't just winning battles, they were systematically dismantling everything the Empire had built. Every victory they achieved was broadcast across Imperial channels, ensuring that every citizen of the Empire witnessed their downfall. Back on the Prometheus, Marcus received confirmation that the final phase was ready to begin. "Send the message to all Imperial worlds," he ordered. "Let them see what their leadership's arrogance has cost them." Throughout Xerathi space, communication networks were hijacked. On every screen, on every planet, the same images played. The attack on Helios Station, the death of Miranda Chen, followed by recordings of humanity's victories. The message was clear. This was the price of attacking the innocent. The Empire's response was chaotic. Some worlds, seeing the futility of resistance, began surrendering. Others, driven by centuries of Imperial propaganda, prepared for a fight to the death. But everywhere, the carefully maintained image of Xerathi invincibility was crumbling. As the World Breakers fell one by one, disabled but not destroyed, Marcus stood at his command viewport. "Prepare the final approach," he ordered. "It's time to end this." The human fleet, its true size finally revealed, began moving toward the Xerathi homeworld. They had not come to destroy. That would have made them no better than the Empire. They had come to deliver justice, to ensure that no other species would suffer as humanity had suffered. The countdown to the Empire's final reckoning had begun. Would you like me to continue with the final part? The Xerathi homeworld hung in space like a jewel, its 3 moons reflecting light from its crimson sun. For millennia, it had been the heart of an empire that spanned thousands of worlds. Now it was surrounded by the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, but not its own. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching as the last of the World Breakers powered down, their crews surrendering rather than face total annihilation. The entire human fleet had assembled, their ships forming a sphere around the Xerathi homeworld. It was not just a military formation, it was a message. "The Imperial Palace has been located," Commander Santos reported. "Our ground forces are ready for deployment. Supreme Overlord Vexthor is still inside." Marcus nodded, his expression grim. "Begin the transmission." Across every communication channel, on every frequency the Xerathi could receive, his message played. "I am Admiral Marcus Chen of the Human Federation. 3 months ago, your forces attacked a research station and murdered my niece, along with other innocent civilians. You believed us weak. You believed we would accept this atrocity. You were wrong." In the Imperial Palace, Vexthor watched the transmission with his remaining advisors. The mighty throne room, which had once hosted celebrations of conquest, now felt like a tomb. "Your empire was built on the belief that technological superiority gives you the right to dominate others." Marcus's message continued. "We could destroy your world now, as you have destroyed so many others. But that is not our way. Instead, we offer you a choice." Outside the palace, quantum transporters activated. Human forces materialized throughout the capital city, not with weapons raised, but in defensive formations. They were not there to conquer, but to secure. "Surrender now." Marcus's voice resonated through the palace halls. "And your people will be spared. Resist, and we will dismantle every vestige of power your empire has ever held. The choice is yours." For the first time in his long reign, Vexthor found himself facing an enemy he couldn't intimidate or overwhelm. The humans had systematically destroyed every advantage his empire had ever held. Their technology, hidden for centuries, had proven far superior to anything the Exarathi possessed. How? He demanded of the empty air. How did you hide this from us for so long? The answer came from Marcus himself, who had quantum transported directly into the throne room, flanked by elite guards. Because we remembered our history, he said, his voice carrying both authority and sadness. Humanity learned long ago that showing all your strength only invites challenge. So we waited, we watched, and we prepared. Around the throne room, more human soldiers appeared, their weapons ready but not aimed. They moved with practiced precision, securing the chamber without a single shot fired. Your empire killed my niece, Marcus continued, approaching the throne. An innocent child whose only crime was being human. In doing so, you taught us something about yourselves, that you were exactly what we feared you might be. That's why we built our fleet. That's why we developed our technology in secret. Because we knew that one day, someone like you would come. Vexthor rose from his throne, his ceremonial armor gleaming in the chamber's light. For a moment, it seemed he might resist. Then, slowly, deliberately, he removed his crown. The surrender of the Exarathi Empire was broadcast across the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of imperial expansion watched in amazement as the mighty empire laid down its arms. But it was what came next that truly shocked them. Humanity did not occupy the empire's worlds. They did not strip them of their resources or reduce them to slave states. Instead, they implemented what would become known as the Chen Protocol, a system of rehabilitation and reconstruction. We're not here to destroy your civilization, Marcus announced to the assembled representatives of former imperial worlds. We're here to ensure that no empire can ever again threaten the peace of the galaxy. Your worlds will be free to govern themselves, under a new galactic council where all species have an equal voice. The transformation that followed would reshape galactic society. Human technology, no longer hidden, was shared with peaceful worlds. The former imperial planets, freed from centuries of oppressive rule, began to rebuild themselves as independent nations. On Helios Station, now rebuilt as a memorial, Marcus stood before a hologram of his niece Miranda. The station had become a symbol, not of humanity's vengeance, but of their determination to create a better galaxy. We did it, little one, he whispered to the image. We made sure no other child would die as you did. Your death sparked a change that will echo through history. The human fleet remained, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Their ships patrolled the spaces between worlds, ensuring that the peace they had fought for would endure. The message was clear. Humanity had emerged not just as a powerful force, but as protectors of the weak and defenders of justice. In the years that followed, the galaxy would remember the lesson taught by humanity's response to the death of one child. That true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to. The empire that had ruled through fear was replaced by a federation built on cooperation and mutual respect. And on countless worlds, children looked up at the stars without fear, knowing that somewhere out there, humanity's ships stood ready to defend them. The price of peace had been high, but its promise would endure for generations to come. The end. Would you like me to provide a conclusion or summary of the entire story's themes and impact?